Hello and welcome to the final video of our series on painting this Fyreslayer dwarf. In this concluding episode, I'll show you an efficient and enjoyable technique for painting leather. Plus, we'll be applying some final touches that will enhance not just the metals, but also the expression in the figure's eyes, giving it a striking and complete finish. So without further ado, let's get started. To start off this process, I'm going to pick the oldest and most worn out brush I have. Then, I'll press the brush tip into the paint, in this case, Mourfang brown, a reddish brown with excellent coverage. Watch how the brush tip flays out completely, which is just what I need for the technique I'm about to use. Next, I move on to stippling the paint onto the leather, focusing on the lighter areas to create a base texture. This texture will be crucial for the future light layers I'll apply, using the same stippling technique, but in a more refined and subtle manner. This approach allows me to build a realistic and detailed representation of leather. Leather, with its variations in texture and color, poses a particularly interesting challenge. It's not just about applying the right color, but about creating the illusion of a surface that has been tanned, used, and often worn. Working with a frayed brush might seem counterintuitive, especially in the miniature world where precision and sharpness are often prized. But it's in those imperfections that its creative potential truly lies. A worn brush, with its uneven and splayed bristles, opens up a whole range of possibilities for creating textures and effects impossible with a perfectly pointed brush. Such a frayed brush is ideal for simulating textures like the wear on metal, the roughness of leather, or even foliage in a landscape. The irregular bristles distribute paint unevenly, creating natural and organic patterns that add realism and depth to the figure. This irregularity encourages a freer, more expressive painting style, where each brushstroke is unpredictable and unique. In summary, a worn brush isn't just a discardable tool, it's a valuable ally in the creative process. It teaches us that a tool can have a long, useful life, far beyond its traditional use. For this second layer of light, I'm switching things up from the previous technique. Instead of sticking with the stippling, I'm going to go for short, delicate brush strokes. These strokes will mimic the texture of tiny scratches and grooves, adding a new dimension to the leather. The effect will be a striking contrast against the rounded dots created by the earlier stippling, creating a variety of textures that really enrich the leather surface. By blending these two techniques, I'm not just enhancing the visual depth of the material, I'm also recreating the natural marks and wear of leather, resulting in a far more credible and detailed representation. Now I'm adding a bit of sunny skin tone to the leather brown and carefully applying this mix onto the figure, focusing particularly on the areas where the light hits the strongest. In this step, my main goal is to accentuate the volume of the leather, ensuring that the material takes on a three-dimensional appearance and avoids looking flat. By applying this lighter shade, I'm subtly highlighting the raised areas and the parts where the light falls most directly. This not only adds depth but also enhances the leather, giving it a more natural and realistic look. To begin with, I create a lighter shade by adding a bit of basic skin tone to the existing mix. This lightening should be subtle, as the goal here is to simulate fine cuts and natural wear, not to make them overly pronounced. When painting the cuts, I apply thin and precise lines, complemented by some small dots. It's crucial to remember that these cuts aren't just straight lines. They often have irregular edges and variations in width, mirroring how leather would realistically tear or get cut. Throughout the process, I make careful decisions about where to emphasize where. To achieve this, I use a mix of normal brush strokes and stippling. I'm going back to using the airbrush now, this time diluting dark red ink in a ratio of 5 drops of water to 1 of ink. I'll apply this mix carefully to the shadowed areas of the leather. This shade blends seamlessly with the colors I've previously used for texturing the leather on the miniature, creating a much more realistic and believable effect. Moreover, the satin finish of the ink plays a crucial role in this process. It brings that distinctive tanned leather look that we're aiming for. This subtle sheen not only improves the leather's appearance, but also adds depth and richness to the material. This is achieved through the contrast between the matte shadow and the glossy finish of the rest of the leather. I'm going back to the brush now, using the lightest tone to highlight and add some new cuts and wear to the leather details that were somewhat lost due to the previous airbrushing. This step is crucial to bring back and emphasize the finer details that add realism to the leather. With care, I'm applying small brush strokes to refine the cuts and wear marks, making sure each one contributes to the visual story of the piece. To wrap things up, I'll carefully apply some almost undiluted red ink strokes to the shadowed areas, aiming to further accentuate the contrast on the leather. Watch how I confidently use my finger to clean up an area that I'm not fully satisfied with. It's important to remember not to shy away from direct contact with the miniature if it helps to enhance the final outcome. This flexibility and willingness to adjust your work on the fly are essential parts of the creative process and can often be the key to turning around a piece that might not be going as planned. Now, I'm diving into one of the most rewarding stages of the entire process: the final touches. These small details are set to elevate the piece to a new level, starting with the metals. I'm careful to add a highlight of the brightest light to precisely chosen areas, like the helmet or the axe blade, to give them a special emphasis and draw the viewer's attention to these key features. Final touches on a miniature figure are essential because they make the difference between a piece that's merely finished and one that truly stands out. Firstly, they provide an opportunity to enhance the visual narrative of the miniature. For instance, a subtle reflection in the eyes can bring a sense of life and emotion, while highlighting certain edges can add clarity and definition to the figure. These small details invite the observer to come closer and appreciate the complexity and effort put into every inch of the work. Moreover, they allow for the correction or improvement of areas that might have become dulled or less defined during the painting process. Finally, I focus on the eyes. Using very diluted orange ink, I create a gentle reflection around them. This subtle detail not only adds depth and expressiveness to the face, but also acts as a narrative focal point, drawing the viewer's gaze towards the character's expression. This final touch might be small, but its impact on the visual story told by the miniature is substantial. As usual, I'll finish with 3 points to remember. Old brushes. While it may seem counterintuitive, using a worn-out brush with uneven and scattered bristles is ideal for simulating textures such as the wear and the roughness of leather. This type of brush distributes the paint unevenly, creating natural and organic patterns that add realism and depth to the miniature. Inks. These paints are an essential tool for mimicking the look of tanned leather and enhancing the depth of shadows. Their application provides a sense of age and wear. Final touches. Paying attention to the final details, refining and perfecting those small aspects that might initially have been overlooked, can significantly transform the final quality of our work. It's in this step that the difference between a well-painted miniature and an outstanding one lies. And with that, we come to the end of this tutorial series on painting this Fyreslayer dwarf. It's been an incredible journey, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Before we part ways, I want to share a little reflection. In the art of miniature painting, patience truly is a virtue. Every brush stroke, every shadow, every little detail, no matter how small, contributes to the story each figure tells. I encourage you to take your time, savor each moment of the process, and watch as your skills and figures come to life with each painting session. A special thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. Your support makes this series possible and motivates me to keep improving and sharing what I know with all of you. I promise to keep striving to bring you quality content and painting techniques that help you grow and enjoy this wonderful hobby even more. Until next time, keep painting, exploring, and most importantly, enjoying every step of this creative journey. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next video.